So good morning, folks. I'd like to welcome you all this morning to the 6th annual Southcentral Alaska Avalanche Workshop. My name's Aleph Johnston-Bloom. I'm one of the forecasters at the CNFAIC, the Chugach National Forest Avalanche Information Center in Girdwood. And I'm really excited to be here this morning. We've been working on this, putting this this workshop together for you all summer, and it's great to see all your faces here. This workshop and the continuing education you're receiving today is all from the hard work and sponsorship of these entities that are up on the screen here. So first of all, a big thank you to the American Avalanche Association. They give us a generous grant every year to help put this event on. And then it is a partnership with Alaska Pacific University, the Chugach National Forest Avalanche Information Center, the Friends of the Chugach National Forest Avalanche Information Center, the Alaska Avalanche School, the Alaska Avalanche Information Center, and then all these great donors who are providing the snacks and libations for the after party. So big round of applause for all of our sponsors today. It's a big deal. So the first thing, because the American Avalanche Association makes this possible for us, we're going to do just a little promo video for the A3. If you're not familiar with the A3, there is a booth over in the corner. Ava and I will be there today and can talk about the American Avalanche Association and what it means to be a member of that association if you have questions. So to start off, we'll have a slightly hilarious transition because I am also the first speaker this morning. So I'm going to introduce myself just a little bit more again. I know most of you in the audience, I think, but this will be the start of my 4th season as an avalanche forecaster for the Chugach National Forest Avalanche Center. I came up here 6 years ago to work for the Alaska Avalanche School. And I've been around in the avalanche business now for almost 20 years, doing a variety of jobs forecasting for the highway in Colorado, ski patrolling in both Colorado and Utah, and working as a National Forest Avalanche forecaster on the Payette National Forest. I'm really honored to be up here and be part of this community here. And so, thinking a lot about what these workshops mean and why they're important. And I think, like we have our little communities that we're all part of within this avalanche community, and we share information. And I really like that we get together in the fall and we network like this, talk about things that we find interesting, kind of get our brains in gear for the season ahead. And so on a broader scale, there's the International Snow Science Workshop. And this year it was held in Innsbruck, Austria, which is kind of far away from Alaska. But I felt really lucky to have had the opportunity to go to that conference this year and interact as part of the greater avalanche community. So I'm going to go over some of those highlights. I only have a short amount of time here. There's tons of information there. So I hope to share just a few highlights and pique your curiosity to find out more about it. So the other thing I wanted to do is I'd also like to, again, thank the Friends of the Chugach National Forest Avalanche Information Center. They both supported my research that I helped present at the conference, as well as sent me over there. So it was a really great professional development opportunity. So because it's hard to illustrate just by talking how phenomenal getting to go to a place like Innsbruck is, I'm just going to play a video for you and let it speak for itself. So obvious in that movie, all that footage is filmed in and around Innsbruck. So you can see it's a place that has a lot of Avalanche research, history, just up on the hills above the city. And so going to this conference is being part of this international snow geek community, which we all are part of because we share this information. And so there's presenters from 27 different countries represented at this conference, all talking about things that we all are interested in. And so my colleague Ava put it, I thought, pretty well, that even going to the conference was almost this omnivorous dilemma of what do I choose to participate in? There's so many talks and interesting posters. And so even this morning, it was challenging for me to think about what's the best way to show highlights. Because I went to the conference from my forecaster perspective. But I know there's a number of you who do a variety of other jobs in the snow industry in this room. So there was 140 oral presentations, and they were all presented in 4 languages. So you could sit, if you didn't understand the language that it was presented in, with headphones on and listen to it translated. There was 285 poster presentations. And so for you all, because you can use this as resources in your work, your play, whatever you're doing, if you want to take your phones out right now and take a photo of these 2 websites up here. One is the program for the ISSW, so you can see all the different topics, because I can't cover those in 20 minutes this morning. And the other is the link to get the papers. So if something is interesting to you, you can go through and you can query this ISSW and the ISSWs that have come before. There's tons of great resources there for whatever piques your interest. The other thing is that there's other folks in this Alaskan community who went to the ISSW. So if you went to ISSW from Alaska, stand up. So pretty great that we have other resources. I'm sure they have things that they found really interesting and that would love to share with you while you're hanging out, talking today at the social, or when you're out seeing them through the winter. Ask them, what were your highlights? I'm pretty sure Dave is willing to do an interpretive dance of remote avalanche control systems for you in his tour. The other thing is that the next issue of the Avalanche Review is going to also have professionals from the US, what their highlights were from a variety of perspectives. So from the patroller perspective, the researcher perspective, the student perspective, the forecaster perspective. So again, I'm just touching on a few things this morning. So the first thing, again, I want to use this video. This was the first presentation that opened ISSW. I think some of you may already have seen this video before, but it definitely touches on the complexity of technology that's being utilized in our field right now.
It's very difficult to simulate avalanches because snow is a very complex material and its mechanical behavior is not fully understood yet. Another problem is that snow can behave like a solid or like a fluid depending on the loading. And for example, snow on the ground and snowpack stability are generally treated using solid mechanics, while the flow of an avalanche is usually characterized using fluid dynamics. It's very difficult to find a unified and large-strain framework to simulate the whole avalanche process. Our main contribution is the development of a new snow mechanical model which takes into account a lot of important ingredients. So for example, we are able to account for snow compaction and hardening. We also managed to model snow fracture, but most importantly, we are able to simulate for the first time the observed collapse of the weight layer, which is a crucial process for the release of a slab avalanche. In addition, we used a new numerical model called MPM. It's a hybrid method which was already used and further extended by UCLA mathematicians to simulate the snow in the Disney movie Frozen. And it allowed us for the first time to simulate both the release and the flow of the avalanche at the slope scale and in 3 dimensions. We expect our new model to contribute to improve avalanche forecasting and risk management because we can now simulate and thus predict the release size of an avalanche, which is currently missing in operational models. Also, we can expect our model to have interesting applications in graphics and in animation. And we did not only reproduce the physics well, but we also made a really nice rendering of our videos.
So advanced technologies was a huge theme, especially at the beginning of the week. The week had this flow from kind of more scientific, technical modeling, things like that, and then flowed into more of stability and human factor as the week went on. So those first few days were full of things like model chains and simulations, remote sensing, mapping, remote avalanche control systems, and lots of information technologies. Different apps to help you make decisions while you're out skiing. There's even, programs now that the Norwegians are working on that just plug in the weather parameters, some snowpack parameters, and may start putting out an avalanche forecast, essentially. So basically removing me from my job. But it's interesting to think about how these technologies are going to then meld with, as I talk a little bit later, with the humanity or the human factor, how we make decisions in this process as well. The other thing that was a focus of this conference, which was one that hasn't been at many of the ISSWs before, was talking about climate change. And there's been a lot of research done in Europe on this. And so people presented on everything from how the climate is changing in the Alps to the economics of climate change, talking about the need for more things like research on rain on snow events and the economics of climate change. Ski areas are managing, how ski areas over there are managing for that change. So one of the things I noted while I was looking at it, if you look at those two pictures, one of those pictures was taken by Henry, the one on the left. That was taken in Alaska the spring of 2017. And everyone was like, wow, that's a really unusual debris pile there, right? Looks kind of strange. And then I thought it was kind of interesting as I was going through the presentations in Europe, is that a forecaster from Switzerland took a fairly similar picture and described fairly similar snowpack conditions with an unusual kind of wet, dry snow continuum. So I thought it was great, again, of being able to think about sharing these information as the climate changes, as snowpacks change, to share information from different places around the world and talk about that. There was also those 285 posters. So and one of the things with posters is you're in these tiny rooms or tiny kind of corridors trying to talk to everybody about what their poster is. But one of the things they did that was really nice is one person would get up before each poster session and describe the poster session that was about to happen. While they were doing that, there was someone in the background doodling on this graphical screen about what the poster session was going to be about. So you could get this visual representation of what was to come. And so this was one of the snowpack stability ones. You can see that there was talks about stability tests, glide avalanches, the weather being in the field. And they did this for each poster session. Those are also all available in the ISSW, on the ISSW website, just to see again of like what the variety is that was shown at this conference. So, snow machines. I wanted to bring it back to something that I think about a lot here in Alaska and how, in my forecasting world and how I move through terrain. And snow machines aren't used very much in Europe, but there was a great presentation from a researcher in Canada talking about how snow machines affect the snowpack and looking at pressure sensors, especially in maneuvers. And I thought it was really great. In his first slide here, he says extreme maneuvers. But as he goes along, he says, we really shouldn't be calling these extreme maneuvers. These are maneuvers that most people do when they're on their machines in the backcountry. So things like turning at the top of a hill, trenching in. And so there's more research on things like this that could be really applicable to folks in our community. Knowing about if you're trenching in a certain way, is that affecting a weak layer in a different manner? And there was lots of discussion about hazard communication and perception, how we forecast and how the public perceives it, and also consistency through different forecasting operations, even consistency with different countries in the Alps. They had some great maps of all of the forecast danger rating colors for the Alps with the color, so you could have low, moderate, next to each other across terrain, and they showed that Switzerland tends to forecast the danger at a lower rating than the countries around it. So looking at those trends, what are we doing as forecasters? How can we be more consistent and convey that? So there's a lot of discussion about that. So you can see here, there's a few things we can relate to here, right? Is how many avalanches, how many bears, and how many mosquitoes. So how many, when I use the word many in my forecast, how many do I really mean? Lots of discussion of human factors and risk strategies. These are all ones, the authors are thrown up there, but all things that I think could be applicable to any of our fields of interest in here. And then, as I said, as the week progressed on, we got into more of human factors, decision making, and what it means to be human. And so one of the conversations talked a lot about what it's like, how do professionals make decisions in a different way from recreationalists? Or is there a different way? Do we need to have different language to talk about professionals' cognitive process? But she ended her presentation, which I think, with a good little quote there, which I think we could probably all relate to, is forecasting is hard. So again, I really want to thank you all for the opportunity, just for my quick and dirty of what I thought was interesting. I'm happy to chat more about things I found. I know I'm going to go to my operation and implement some things this winter. I know Ski Patrol is going to use some. I know the railroad will use some. I know, guide services, researchers in the room are going to take what they got from this community. So again, I'm really excited that you're all here today for our talks. Some of the talks today will be from that conference, but it's just really great to be part of that community and have this opportunity. So thank you for your attention. Ava and I did present our poster on mentorship, and she's going to do that. That's on the schedule today later. So thanks for your attention.